Hello and welcome to another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, a first responder mental health podcast. I'm your host, Erin Jane, and today I am joined by Chris Moore. Chris is an active duty firefighter with over 30 years of service, where he currently is serving as a captain with the Chesapeake Fire Department in Virginia. He's an outspoken advocate for the mental health and wellness and suicide prevention in the first responder community after experiencing some of his own challenges and struggles, including a suicide attempt in 2022 and a PTS diagnosis. He travels around the country sharing his story in the hope of bringing awareness and reducing the associated cultural stigma that's so heavily entrenched in the first responder population. And this also includes being interviewed for the documentary PTSD 911. And I'm so incredibly grateful to have him here with me today on the podcast. Hi, Chris.
Erin, the pleasure is all mine. I'm honored to be here with you on your podcast. So thank you for giving everybody this important platform to spread the word about this and normalize these conversations. So thank you.
No, that's really kind. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a sincere privilege to have these conversations and have people like you come on and just be willing to be open and honest and really vulnerable, because I can imagine, even though this is something that you do a lot, it probably is, it can be taxing and take a toll every now and then.
Yeah, definitely it is. It's very draining sharing my story, but it's stuff that needs to be heard. Not just my story, but everybody has a story. And like I said, we just need to normalize this. And the more we do that, the more people realize that they're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we say that everyone has a story. I want to take yours all the way back to the beginning, if you will allow me. And what got you interested in, serving as a firefighter in the first place?
Yeah. So from my earliest days as a toddler, as far back as I can remember, my father, he was a Marine. He served in Vietnam, and once he came back, and my father and my mother started a family. And like I said, from what I remember, I heard some stories, but not a whole lot. He didn't talk about Vietnam, but he became a police officer.
Okay.
And I remember, I think it tied into his service as a Marine. They have some of the best uniforms out of all of our service here. And just the pride carried over from his Marine Corps days to serving as a police officer. And I just remember being in awe every time my dad was preparing to go to work and putting his uniform on, and his uniform was nice and crisp, and the creases were perfect. His shoes and his belt, they had the big thick patent leather duty belts back then.
Yeah.
And everything was just polished up perfectly. And he was just so proud to put that uniform on and to serve the community. And I was so proud to call him my dad and tell everybody that that's my dad. He's protecting us and making sure that everybody out in the community here is safe. And I knew from those times that I wanted to do something similar to that. I wanted to serve the public, serve the community. And I thought about becoming a police officer. But as I grew up, got older and got wiser, and when I became of age to start applying to places, I actually scored a little bit higher on the test. So I was eligible to be a firefighter. I didn't have to settle for being a cop. So that's the running joke right there.
Yeah.
Just we have different uniforms, but we're all on the same team.
Absolutely.
So we take little barbs at each other.
Yep.
But the real reason I didn't go into law enforcement and chose firefighting was the number one. I wanted to blaze my own trail. No pun intended with blaze, but I wanted to be my own person. I didn't want to follow his footsteps into law enforcement and be known as his son. I mean, I was proud to be his son, but I just wanted to be my own man, my own person.
100% makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Plus, I remember once again as a youth, he would take me on patrol with him, And one of the things that he would do, he would stop at a lot of the fire stations. And I just
Okay.
remember seeing those firefighters back in the day. And law enforcement has a lot of good camaraderie, but firefighting is more teamwork. And it just seemed like the camaraderie and everything was a lot
Yeah.
more there.
Yeah.
I grew up playing team sports. So I wanted to do I really love the team aspect of the fire service. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
chose that route right there.
Yeah.
And like I said, I was trying everything. It was a lot harder back in the
Yeah.
90s to get
Yeah.
into any form of public safety, be it law enforcement, fire, EMS, dispatch. Um, I remember taking the test to get hired, and it was thousands of people that were going through the process. Nowadays, we
Wow.
have a few hundred when we do our
Yeah.
processes.
Yeah.
But so I was trying everything, and I ended up becoming a volunteer for 7 years before I got hired. I went through volunteer school in the city of Virginia Beach, where I reside,
Mm-hmm.
in 1993. It was January of 93. I did that and got all my certifications. I got my EMT,
Mm-hmm.
and I was working alongside all the career firefighters and doing a lot of hours. If I wasn't at my regular full time job, I was at the firehouse with those guys and
Yeah.
just soaking up everything that I could
Yeah.
in hopes of one day becoming career.
Yeah.
And it took 7 years of that.
I mean, that's crazy. Like,
Yeah,
what sort of job were you doing that I guess allowed you to put in so much time in a volunteer capacity?
I was working for a Department of Defense agency,
Okay.
the Navy Exchange. I was working in some of their warehouses and shipping
Okay.
merchandise all around the world.
Yeah.
And it was just it was a mundane job. It was a good job for whoever does that, and for somebody fresh out of high
Yeah.
school going into that, it was good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't where my heart was and where I
Yeah.
wanted to be.
Yeah.
So like
That
I said, I
makes
was just
sense.
soaking it all up and doing everything. And finally, in 2000, I got the phone call and became a career firefighter, where I still serve today in
Yeah.
the neighboring city of Chesapeake, Virginia.
That's crazy. What was getting that call like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was a dream come true because,
Yeah.
like I said, I wanted this so bad
Yeah.
um, to just serve the public. And I know that's kind of a cliche answer. Everybody says that when we do interview panels and people are coming in to get hired, we ask them why they want to be a firefighter, and it's to serve
Yeah.
the public. But
Yeah.
that's truly what I wanted to do, is to help others.
Hmm.
And the the phone call when I got that and was offered the job, the second I hung up the phone, I picked it right back up and called my parents and shared that information with my father and my mother, and they were so proud. And
I bet they
um,
were.
I'll never ever forget that moment. So it
Yeah.
was great.
That's incredible. And yeah, I think, you know, I do hear what you're saying when, you say it kind of sounds like such a cliche, but I think it also speaks to the point that not everyone can do the jobs that we do because, it's not like, firefighters and cops and dispatchers and correctional officers and EMTs, like you're not out there like earning $1 million serving your community. Like, more often than not, we get like a decent wage, but weighing that up with like the toll that it can take on us, like I think it's something deep inside us, and that it draws you to serve. So even though it sounds like it's a cliched answer, I think it speaks more about the kind of person that you are on the inside, that you are willing to do a job where effectively you sometimes have to put your life on the line to protect that community.
Yeah, definitely somewhat of a calling that
Mm.
we have, like you just described perfectly, so eloquently,
Yeah.
that it's just something inside of us
Yeah.
where we want to give back
Hmm.
and help others, because that's when they call us,
Yeah.
is when they're having the worst day of their life. And
Exactly.
regardless of what that may be, we might not think it's that big of a deal to us, but obviously it was to the citizens that called us and needed us in that moment.
Yeah.
And I'm
Absolutely.
proud still to this day I'll never stop being proud of it, but I'm proud to get there and get off the rig and go
Yeah.
there and be that problem solver and make their day a little bit better. Hopefully
Yeah.
a lot better, but at least a little.
Absolutely. And I think it's, if anyone has had any of those, like the worst day sort of your lives, like the people who show up, they leave an imprint on you for the rest of your life. So in our capacities, like how we do show up for those people is going to be part of their memory and their recollection of potentially, like their worst day. And it's like, for us, it's a Tuesday,
Yeah.
but I think there's a reverence in that. I think that, needs to be respected by us to a certain extent too.
Yeah. And to me, it doesn't just stop the second that and for most firefighters and law enforcement, all first responders will say that. The second we get off shift and we swipe out and we walk out the doors of the firehouse or the police precinct or sheriff's office or dispatch center, wherever it may be, we don't stop being that. It still parlays over into our regular lives.
Yeah.
And to me, it's all about just being, not necessarily being a good firefighter. It's about being a good human being and just helping those that we can help and making time for others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so you've been with Chesapeake, is it for 24 years now?
Yes, ma'am. I'm on my 25th now. So,
My
um,
goodness, my goodness. And you are a captain now?
yes, ma'am. Captain in charge
Hmm.
of an engine company. I was a glowworm working in hazmat, but
Glowworm. I've never
yeah,
heard that one before. That's a good one.
I'm out of hazmat now. So just in charge of a regular engine company and a
Yep.
medic crew and
Yep.
loving
Yep.
life. I have a great crew, have an amazing department. We're about
Hmm.
500 members.
Wow.
And like I said, life is good. I want to keep
Yeah.
doing this as long as it's really hard on the body,
Yeah.
but as long as my body will allow, I want to continue doing it. And
Yeah.
more importantly, I guess, and that's what we're going to be diving into in just a little bit, as long as my
Hmm.
mind will allow too, because it takes as big of a toll it takes on our body, it doesn't on our mental health as well. So
Absolutely. I could not agree more as the wife of an active duty firefighter, also a captain in his 50s. It's all about just that support around, making sure he gets the sleep, making sure I'm, making him have all the vitamins that get all like the awful stuff out of his system, heat up the sauna for him, make sure he's fed. Like it's all of those things, just trying to support him in that way, like you're saying.
yeah,
And so obviously we just sort of alluded to it. So let's kind of let's dive on in. We had, a bit of a offline conversation like I like to do with my guests, just to kind of check in and see how our conversation's going to go. And you sort of mentioned to me that roughly in like 2017 you sort of got to a point where you felt like your bucket was getting a bit full and even perhaps overflowing. What can you share with us about that time for you?
yeah. So that's exactly it. 2017. I like to use the analogy that our head is like a bucket,
Mm-hmm.
and everything that we're exposed to is going into that bucket.
Yeah.
Traumatic event wise, the average person is going to see anywhere from one to five on the higher end traumatic events in a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you take a first responder, and you can see that in one shift, and you factor that
Absolutely.
into a 20, 30, even over 40-year career. That's a lot of stuff if we don't have some kind of a healthy coping mechanism to empty that bucket, because we have to
Absolutely.
empty it. And if we don't, it's going to overflow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 2017, if you count in my 7 years as a volunteer, that was 24 years of being a first responder and being exposed to traumatic events.
Mm-hmm.
No knock on my father. He passed in '05,
Mm-hmm.
but he was the older generation. Marine Corps and served a couple tours over in Vietnam. And it was the whole suck it up, boys don't cry, and you got to be the best at everything. Very, very alpha, which a lot of us in the first responder community are anyhow, are alpha. But I was really brought up very, very strict. I had a good childhood, but there were issues.
Yeah.
So that was instilled in me at a very young age.
Yeah.
And then when I came into the fire service, even as a volunteer, the guys that were that I was working alongside, same thing, same mentality.
Yeah.
We don't show feelings, we don't show emotions, and you know that we're seeing stuff that would bother anybody. So I had 17 years of that. I had gotten married in 2003, and I was just, like I said, always taught you don't bring work home, or especially this type of work.
Yeah.
We do a lot of cool stuff as first responders, training, and even the calls that we run. We run some pretty cool ones. So you would think, being gone as a firefighter for 24 hours at a time, that when I'm coming home and my wife at the time was going to work and she asked me how my shift was, I would have a lot of stuff to talk about. And I just never would. It was always that it was the norm or it was okay. I would never elaborate or go into any details of anything, be it good or bad calls. And there's a ton of bad, a lot of bad calls, and it was weighing on me. And I'd never had any. I didn't know what healthy coping mechanisms were at the time. And 2017, my bucket overflowed. It was just that one extra call that finally went in there. And then all of the other calls for those 24 years started coming back up to the surface. Calls that I never thought twice about. I ran them, and I was done with them. I was just in such a bad place after this one call in 2017. I started having like violent nightmares. And it was described that they thought that people thought, or my ex-wife thought, that I was having seizures because I was just in my sleep, just thrashing. And it was as if I just walked out of the shower. When I woke up, I was just finished thrashing. I was soaking wet, my heart racing, my respirations just going a mile a minute. It was like I ran a marathon. And this was going on for quite some time after that one call in 2017. And it was all nightmares. And even while I was awake, things would trigger me and take me back to a lot of these earlier calls.
Yeah.
I literally thought that I was going crazy.
Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know in 2017 what post-traumatic stress was. I had heard about it with our military, but I didn't think it was something that first responders got. I know all of our military veterans serving overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan and Africa. My dad in Vietnam and all of those before them. They get post-traumatic stress, everything that they were exposed to, but I never once thought about us.
Yeah.
And then when the thought did start crossing my mind a little bit, I was getting some information here and there. I was like, well, it's only if you're a first responder and you were involved in a line of duty death or a near miss or an officer involved shooting. And I wasn't really involved in any of those. So I was like, it can't be me.
Yeah.
And I thought that I was, like I said, going crazy. I started numbing because that's what we do, unfortunately. I was numbing with the unhealthy coping mechanisms. We all have some kind of vices that we use for numbing when we choose to go that route. I had 3 vices, and neither of them am I proud of. The first one that so many of us in public safety reach for is alcohol.
I was gonna say drinking. We all do
Yeah,
it.
and our culture. This is not a slam on it per se, because there's nothing wrong with having a couple drinks here and there and everything like that. But our culture is just so entrenched in alcohol. And it's if we have a FOP meeting or a IFF meeting, it's usually you go out and you have drinks afterwards. If you have a softball or a golf tournament, you have drinks. And one of the worst things, if knock on wood, we have a brother or sister that falls in the line of duty and we have a funeral, what's the first thing we do after that? We raise a drink to them. And
Absolutely.
that's one of the worst things that we can do is reaching for alcohol in these times of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are hurting and don't even realize it. And I was one of those persons. So that was my first vice. My second vice was financial debt. It made me feel good. I was getting that quick fix, that internal drugstore. Um, if I took my guys out from the firehouse, we get off shift and we go out to Top Golf or take them out to lunch, and I pick up the tab.
Yeah.
Made me feel like a big shot. I felt good for taking care of my crew and all that in a different aspect. But then when that bill came, I was like, oh, shoot.
Yeah.
And I was doing all of that behind my wife's back.
Mm.
And then the third thing was definitely behind her back also. And like I said, I'm not proud of any of these. And this is my least proud, but infidelity. There is a lot of that just in the world today in general, but especially in a lot of the public safety sector, there is.
Yep.
And I fell, actually, I don't want to say I fell victim to it. My wife, ex-wife now, she fell victim to it because I didn't know a lot of this stuff, and I was just doing things that would make me feel better because I was feeling so horrible with everything that I was experiencing once that bucket overflowed.
Yeah.
So I was doing all of that, and I was pretty much a functioning alcoholic, or just
Barely functioning.
yeah, barely functioning, going through all this, and this was going on for several months.
Yeah.
And our chief at the time, he was in the documentary as well, the PTSD 911, Chief Elliott. He's since retired,
Yep.
but he realized something wasn't right when he saw me one day. Like I said, we're about a 500 member department. And it's important that regardless of how small or how big your department is, you have your fingers on the pulse of your members.
Absolutely.
And with 500 members, that could be pretty hard. And I know there's a lot of departments out there much bigger than ours, but this man, he knew everybody's name. If he met your family even just one time, he remembered your spouse's name, your children's names.
Wow.
And he just picked up something wasn't right with me. And he invited me to lunch. We went to lunch, and we had it was a Chris to Ed talk. It wasn't, I was a lieutenant at the time. It wasn't lieutenant to chief.
Yeah.
I was able to speak openly and candidly about what was going on. And he shared a lot of wisdom with me. He asked if I share information with my family about what I feel and what I go through. And the answer was no, because we don't bring work home. And he's like, well, you need to start bringing work home.
Yeah.
And you need to share this with your spouse and let her know when you're struggling, because they described it as walking on eggshells all the time. They didn't know if it was going to be the happy-go-lucky Chris that was walking through the doors, or if it was going to be the biggest a-hole jerk in the world walking through those doors that would just snap at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
And he also recommended that I explore my faith. And we talked and elaborated on both of those a lot during our lunch. It was probably about a 3-hour lunch. But I went home. I spoke with my wife that evening, and actually spoke with my son. And I started opening up with him, and I felt like I was doing better. It felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulder just with doing that.
Yeah.
I thought I was fixed, but I needed so much more than that. Just like I think everybody that is in this profession needs a lot more than just doing that. That's a great start to share, to have safe people in your life, like your spouses, close friends, and loved ones. But we still need a lot more. So I was doing that, talking to her more when I came home from shift. If we had a bad call, I say, hey, just give me some time. I'll talk to you in a little bit. And it worked really well. The nightmares and everything slowed down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I was still drinking. I wasn't drinking as much. I was still spending money, and I was still reaching out for infidelity. And this all went on for about another year. And just imagine over the course of 12 more months, I was still being exposed to more and
Yeah.
more and more. No true healthy coping mechanisms other than talking to safe people and exploring my faith were incorporated into my toolbox yet. And 2018, with, like I said, more and more traumatic events piling up, I started going into an even darker spot. There was another um, major event that happened, and I'm not going to get in. I don't want to trigger people and say specifically what these events are or were. We can imagine. We all, as first responders, we know what we see,
Yep.
and the public listening, the civilians, they can use their imagination as well. But I started going right back down, and even went even darker this time,
Mm-hmm.
and was drinking a lot heavier, and just the biggest, excuse my French, but the biggest asshole that you probably could have ever met at that time period.
Yeah.
And my ex-wife, she remembered that uh, one of my mentors in the fire service had mentioned to us before about a therapist that was in the area, and they work with first responders.
Yep.
And
Okay.
so she kept encouraging me to reach out and get that phone number.
Mm-hmm.
And after several months of her encouraging me to do that, I finally reached out, got the phone number, but I couldn't bring myself to make the phone call.
Yeah.
I sat on it for about another 2 months before one day I was at my wit's end, and I was done with stuff, and I knew that's not where I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
and I just knew I couldn't live my life like this anymore. We have no issue, no qualms whatsoever. Our phone feels like it's filled with helium when we want to pick it up and get on social media or whatever it may be. But I remember in that moment when I picked up my phone, it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was it was so hard to pick up that phone and to dial that number. We do a lot of hard stuff in our lives, our regular lives outside of the public safety sector, but especially on the job, we do a lot of hard stuff.
Yep.
Picking up that 1,000 pound phone and dialing that number is the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life. The therapist, he answered the phone, and he must have thought it was a prank call or something, because I'm just my heart's racing. I'm having like a panic attack,
Yeah.
breathing super heavy and fast. I couldn't get words out of my mouth. It felt like eternity before I can finally get words out of my mouth. But in reality, it was about 20 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And I got 2 words out, just the 2 words, 2 most important words ever for me. And it, it wasn't I do, it was help me. And him and we finally, I was able to get some more words out. We struck up a conversation. It was fairly brief, but we got the point across. And he worked me into his schedule the very next day. And that's when I had to do the second hardest thing ever in my life. To this day, it still is. And that was showing up to that appointment. And just my mindset, and from talking to other people across the country that are in roughly my age range, and even some of the younger guys and girls, I just had in my mind that therapy, when I did show up there and I walked into his office, that he was going to greet me and have on like a smoker's jacket and a pipe, and there's a roaring fireplace in the office.
Yeah.
He's in this big leather wing chair
Yeah.
that I'm
Very like
laying on.
Freudian, like
Yeah,
idea of it all.
Yeah, and I'm laying on a couch and just sharing all these horrific events that are haunting me. And then he's just like, tears start streaming out of his eyes, and he's like, you know what, I can't deal with this, I quit, and just pushes me off the couch, and he just picks up the couch and he just walks out the door. But it was absolutely nothing like that. It was just like you and I right now. It was two safe people having a conversation about my mental health, my wellness, coming up with a game plan and seeing it through. And he introduced me to, we did talk therapy, but we did journaling. He encouraged a lot of journaling, and the importance and the significance of that was just mind blowing. Just how much of a release getting it from here to a pen and then to paper. And I actually take that a step further, and about how powerful pen to paper can be. If you think about some of the most important documents on the face of the earth, for Americans, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, for people around the world, the Bible. It's just so powerful. So it was very powerful tool for me. Some of my stuff, just actually a lot of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But for me in that moment, getting it out and just jotting things down, just shorthand at times or whatever, was just mind blowing. And it helped me tremendously. And I was seeing this gentleman every other week. I was going in and seeing him for almost a year. And then he had a accident within his practice. His partner unexpectedly passed away, and the practice just shut down. And as hard as it was for me to make that phone call and to get into therapy, now I'm back to square one. And without a therapist. But I did have a tool. I had a tool of journaling. But I knew I needed to get back into therapy. So the area where I live here in Virginia Beach has one of the largest military populations in the world. And you would think, with our soldiers having post-traumatic stress, that it would be easy for me to find a trauma competent therapist here. And it was very difficult to find a trauma competent therapist. If I did find one, either they weren't taking new patients or they didn't take my insurance.
Oh my gosh.
So this went on for several months. Then I finally found one. I was pretty much done with my search. I found a phone number. I was like, let me make this last phone call. It might just not be meant to be to get back into therapy, but I made this last phone call. The lady wasn't taking new patients, but she, after having a conversation, she agreed to take me on.
Wow.
And when I went to that appointment, I didn't want to come across as a jerk to her. But the very first thing when we went into the office, I told her, and I still use this analogy and share with people to this day, that therapists are like a pair of shoes. They're not one size fits all.
Nope.
And if I feel like she's not the right fit for me after the end of our session, I'm not coming back. And her response to that was, well, clients aren't one size fits all either. And if I don't think that I can help you, I will get you to where you need to be to get the help that you need. And I loved her and I respected her so much for that, by not just pushing me out the door if I wasn't the right fit for her, but telling me that she would guide me and find the right help for me. So needless to say, we struck it off good, and she was the right fit and I was the right fit.
That's brilliant.
And that's where I was introduced to EMDR, the eye movement desensitization
reprocessing.
Yeah, and man, that's a amazing tool. It doesn't work for everybody. It works for majority of the people, but for me, it worked wonders. And when I share about what that is, because so many people they're not aware of it. And when they catch wind of it, I've had a lot of people ask me, they're like, well, what kind of voodoo brainwashing stuff is that takes and erases that bad stuff that's in your
Yeah.
brain that you're dealing with? And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
it does not erase anything. So I dumb it down to dumb, in my own, I'm calling myself dumb, not other first responders, but dumb first responder
Yeah.
terminology is this big bucket that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Our brain is like a filing cabinet. So
Yeah.
when we're exposed to those traumatic events, they just go into the front of the filing cabinet unless we do something else with them. So what
Mm-hmm.
EMDR does, all it does is help us process what we saw, what we felt,
Yeah.
and all of those, and it just files it to the back of the filing cabinet.
Where it's meant to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't erase it. It's still there,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
it's just in a different area. So it's not on the front of your brain all the time, the front of your
Yeah.
memory all the time. So
Yeah.
it's
And
a
when yeah.
amazing.
And when you think about it, it's not like it's happening in real time. Like it's actually like a true memory.
Yeah.
I spoke to a military veteran about it, and he received it like a fair while ago now, like many years ago, when I think it was really just starting to be tried out, and he was suffering significantly, and he mentioned it to me, and I said something and he was like, "You know what that is?" And I'm like, "Of course I know what that is." Like, I'm so excited one day to be able to become qualified and to be able to offer it, as a potential, like, treatment modality. And the way that he described it, similarly to you, he's like, it's not that I don't remember. He's like, they just take away the overwhelming emotion that is like attached to it. So he's like, I can think of it. He's like, but I don't want to just break down every time I think about it. It just
Yeah.
removes that real heaviness from it.
Yeah. And that's one of the healthy coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, I mean, we use alcohol, like I alluded to
Mm,
earlier, to
yeah.
do the same thing, is to deal with and to numb those emotions and everything. Well, this
Mm-hmm.
treats those emotions and those feelings the proper way,
Yeah.
where we're competent and we're capable of,
Absolutely.
not getting through, but living
Yeah.
through those times and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was an amazing tool, still is.
Yeah. Yeah.
But her and I, we were going through all that, and this was about 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Towards the end of 2019, where I met her, and we were going through this and doing therapy on a regular basis. Anytime that calls happened on shift, my very next appointment with her, we would process them.
Unpack it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was amazing. Well, as I was doing better and better in my recovery and my journey,
Mm-hmm.
um, she would suggest, and none of this is a knock on her at all. She's an amazing therapist. But hey, why don't we, instead of going every other week, why don't we go to once a month?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, you're the doc, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll listen to you. Well, then after once a month, it's like, hey, what about every other month? I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then we got to the point where she suggested going on an as needed basis.
Yeah.
And I forgot how hard it was to pick up that 1,000-pound phone that
Mm-hmm.
very first time.
Yeah.
And my personal response, I accepted that. But looking
Mm-hmm.
back on it now, my personal recommendation is I don't think, once you're in therapy, I don't think we should go to a as needed basis. In
Mm-hmm.
our jobs as first responders, we are reactive. I think we need to start being proactive with
Proactive.
what we
Yeah.
can, and just get into therapy.
Yeah.
But so I went to the as needed basis with her.
Mm-hmm.
We had a bunch of calls throughout, but it was stuff that I was able to deal with. Well, in
Yeah.
March of 2021, had another very horrific call that
Mm-hmm.
bothered me. And I was able to pick up that phone and get myself scheduled and get in within a couple of days. And
Mm-hmm.
we processed it,
Yeah.
unpacked it, and kind of put it away. And we actually, that one took several
Sessions.
sessions,
Yep.
but we got me where I needed to be again. I was doing good. My family life and everything was doing good. Well, almost a year went by. Like I said, that call was in March of 2021. And as we were coming up on the 1 year anniversary, it was January of 22 now. So we're 3 months out. Well, I don't know what happened because like I said, we had processed the call.
Yeah.
Somehow Pandora's box started opening
Crept
back up again.
Yeah.
And I was having flashbacks of that call, lots of intrusive thoughts, having the nightmares, and they started increasing, going from just a regular standard type of nightmare to getting right back into that thrashing again, flailing in my sleep, soaking wet.
Yeah.
And I started numbing again, drinking, spending the money, going outside of my marriage. And I wasn't picking up, I didn't pick up the phone and call her. It was the biggest mistake that I ever made was not picking up the phone and calling her. 3 more months went by, or actually 2 more months. We get into March. We're a week outside of the anniversary. It was almost exactly 7 days away. I was on shift. It was March 15th, 2022, doing my 24-hour shift at the firehouse, and just everything was just crashing down internally in my head. Your body, the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I'm sure a lot of the listeners have probably heard of that. If not, definitely look it up. It's a very technical book, but it is a good read, and it is fairly easy to follow for a dumb fireman like myself. But it's the God's honest truth. The body keeps the score, and that's, if we don't deal with stuff in our mind, you get it all throughout.
Absolutely.
My body was just aching all over. My mind, my heart, my joints, everything was just hurting. And I wanted the pain to stop. I'd been thinking about things for the past couple of months at this point, and when you're in that state of mind, you don't think rational. And I was very irrational, just wasn't making good decisions, wasn't thinking right. My family dynamic was crumbling down around me, like I said, because I was the biggest jerk around. And I made up my mind in that moment, that day at the fire station, that I was going to take my life. And I was like, maybe there'll be some kind of a call here that my life just ends on the call, so I'm on duty and it happens. But if not, when I go home the next morning, I was going to end my life. And early that evening, I started what I thought was being very inconspicuous. Started sending out text messages to people that were close to me. I didn't want to give anything away, obviously, because I wasn't meaning to cry out for help. I wasn't. I wanted to die. I literally wanted to die. I wasn't trying to send out text messages where somebody's like, "Oh, I think Chris is going to kill himself. Let me reach out to him."
Yeah.
I wanted everything. I wanted my pain to end. And I thought the only way to end that pain was to take my life. So I'm sending these text messages out. Later that evening, after I did all that, I composed 3 goodbye letters. I wrote one to my wife, one to my son, and one to my mother, the 3 most important people in my life. And we changed shifts at 0700. And usually at shift change, when I give my turnover to the incoming officer, I would still hang out, sit around with my guys that are getting ready to leave and the guys that are coming in, and we all have some coffee and just BS a little bit, and everybody goes on with their day. Well, I remember when that officer got there, I gave shift change to him, and all the guys, my brothers and sisters that I would normally socialize with, I just had this 1,000-yard stare, and I just walked right past everybody like dead man walking. and just went through the crowd there in our day room and out to the parking lot and got in my car, and I drove home. About a mile before I got to my house, I stopped and I looked at the Ring doorbell, and I waited until I saw my wife and my son leave. And once they left, I proceeded home. I have access to lots of firearms, but all I could think of, like I said, the one thing I was able to think about rationally, I guess somewhat rationally, because I was still going to take my life, but I was just thinking
The
my
aftermath.
the aftermath of it. And my son would have been the first one coming home from school, and I didn't want to use a firearm. I didn't want him to come in and see something so violent, and like many of us first responders have ran calls of stuff like that, and it affects us. And um, I I didn't want that happening to a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
So my other option was with therapy and all. I was placed on one of the things that we do is we buy into doctors, buy into big pharma and everything. So I had a lot of pills that were thrown at me, prescriptions.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a bottle, had it was at least 30 Xanax in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I'm going to take this bottle of pills. I rinsed it down with a fifth of liquor, and I had a 6-pack of beer. I don't recall how much of the 6-pack. I think I got about 4 of them down, and I had sent the message to my wife. Actually sent her all 3 messages. And the next thing I remember, because I just wanted to go to sleep. My son came home, or my son would come home and find me, and it looked like I just passed in my sleep, is what I wanted everything to kind of look like.
Yeah.
But so I took the medication, the alcohol, and next thing I remember just little snippets of a neighbor got into my house, and then fire and EMS showed up. And then the next thing I remember, it was some time had passed. I woke up in the hospital, and I was hooked up to machines, but I looked to my left, and that's when the light bulb came on for me. So I try now to uh, find the good in everything. And as horrific as that day was, number one, I'm still here, but I'm thankful for that. But I'm thankful for that light bulb coming on in that moment when I was finally able to open my eyes and finally focus. To the left of me was my wife and my son. And that's when, like I said, that light bulb came on, and I realized how I was trying to stop the pain. I wasn't, because the pain was all on their faces. All that would have done if I was successful at taking my life was just passing that pain on. It was stopping my life, but it was just passing the pain on.
Yeah.
So I made up my mind in that moment, never again. If I get out of here, they get me stable and everything, and I pull through this, which I was assuming, since I woke up and I was in the hospital hooked up to stuff, that I was going to make it,
Yeah.
that I was going to do everything I could to get the help that I needed, to see it through on a daily basis,
Mm.
and to be the best person that I can be, because I ruined, not my suicide attempt, but my lack of um, paying attention to my mental health and paying attention to my marriage and to my family. It ruined my marriage, so I had no other options um, as far as fixing that. I tried to, but in my wife's eyes, and God bless her, she was an angel, still is. She tried to get me help. Even years before 2017, she could see the wheels turning and stuff like that, and she was always my rock and my strength. But I had damaged our marriage beyond repair. So all I could do was just fix myself and try and be a good human being and be the best father that I could to my son.
Yeah.
And if I got into future relationships, be the best partner I could in that. But I just needed to fix myself, because if we can't fix ourselves and be happy with ourselves and who we are, we're not going to be that for anybody else.
Absolutely.
So I ended up being in the hospital for over a week.
Okay.
And when I came out of the hospital, I have a good friend of mine that's he's in our circle and everything too. He's a retired cop out on the West Coast,
Mhm.
and he's a warrior, also a mental health advocate, suicide prevention. He's walked the walk and he talks the talk also.
Mhm.
And he reached out to me and he told me about an organization that he went through. It's called Save a Warrior.
Mhm.
Started out on the West Coast in California, and it has since moved to
Yeah.
Hillsborough, Ohio. And it's for veterans and first responders with complex post-traumatic stress and
Okay.
or suicide ideations.
Yeah. Okay.
So he encouraged me. He's like, hey, he goes, no guarantee that they will accept you. They're a nonprofit, but you got to still meet their qualifications. He's like,
Mhm.
no guarantee. He goes, but at least submit.
Yeah.
So I submitted my information to them. They reached out to me, and we had a rostering phone call where they pretty much interviewed me to see where I am with my mental health and if I qualify for their program.
Mhm.
And I did. And they scheduled me to come out to Ohio and go through there. It's only a 72-hour program
Mhm.
to go through that.
Yeah.
And I was scheduled for the end of April of 2022. So
Wow.
about a
Yeah.
month and a half post suicide attempt. But like I said, my mind was in a much better place, but I still needed these tools and needed to um, just learn more about myself and who I was, and know that what I was going through and what I was struggling with was normal.
Yeah.
We just need to learn how to deal with it better, because it was abnormal how I was dealing with things.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And we were, while I was waiting to go through that, I experienced so many highs and lows of it.
Mhm.
Um, the high, I'll start with that first, was
Mhm.
it was a month and one day after my suicide attempt that it was Easter Sunday, April 17th, 2022.
Mhm.
And I had grown up in the church. And when my wife and I got married and we started a family, we wanted to do the same with our son.
Mhm.
But even though we were going to church, it was probably at least once, twice a month we would go to services.
Yeah.
And life kind of does get busy, so sometimes you might miss here and there. But I was just kind of spinning my wheels and going nowhere. I I was showing up and going through the motions.
Yeah.
But that Sunday, like I said, it was a month and one day, Easter Sunday,
Mhm.
April 17th, 2022.
Quite a
We
poignant
were,
day. Yeah.
yeah, we were in church, and for the Easter service, the no matter where people stand in their faith journey,
Yeah.
agnostic, Christian, whatever. This is my story, my journey. The
Mhm.
Holy Spirit came over me that day in church,
Mhm.
and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior that day.
Mhm.
Just something I can't describe it. I'd been in that church and other churches many a times,
Yeah.
but I never had a feeling and a epiphany like that
Mhm.
until that moment. And it was and still is amazing to
Mhm.
this day to still be able to walk with God.
Yeah.
And I was taking how when we were talking about journaling earlier with my very first therapist, um, I took the pen out of God's hands, because
Yeah.
in my mind, he writes everybody's story, and I took it away from him. He was writing my story, and he
Mhm.
wasn't done. My story wasn't done on March 16th, and that's why I'm still here today. So I
Mhm.
graciously give him back the pen to continue with my story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And So that was the high right there. But like I said, I experienced a lot of lows,
Mm.
and I've had people that I considered great friends. And after my suicide attempt, I've had some that have never talked to me again. And it's tough, but I had some that actually did talk to me, but they chastised me and pretty much read me the riot act. That what I did was the most selfish thing that anybody could do, and I was only thinking about myself. I wasn't thinking about my family, my friends, my loved ones, my department. And it was just, to me, it's such a horrible thing for somebody to say, to call
Yeah.
me a coward for what I did. And I, this might not be the best analogy, but I liken suicide and suicide attempts to if you have somebody going through cancer, they
Yeah.
have a terminal cancer. The final, most of the time, the final outcome to cancer, especially if you let it go untreated, which some people choose that,
Yeah.
or sometimes you don't even know you had cancer. But the ultimate outcome is usually death.
Yeah.
Okay, so I equate mental health to that, and I know I'm not taking anything away from cancer. I'm not
No,
taking
no, no.
anything away from mental
It's
health. I'm just trying to
it's
do
it's
some kind of a
it's an
comparison.
analogy. It's fine.
Yeah, if you have mental health and you have it untreated,
Yeah.
which mine was pretty much untreated, I wasn't treating it properly.
Mhm.
The final outcome for untreated mental health, a lot of the times, not all the time, because we got a lot of people that don't treat it and they live productive and full lives.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, one of the final outcomes for untreated mental health is suicide,
Mhm.
death by suicide. And I had a lot of people that couldn't see that and still to this day can't see it and can't understand it and called me just about every name of the book. And one of the things that hurt the most were some of these were very, very close people to me.
Yeah.
But it did teach me that um, a lot of people, and when I share this, they see this and they understand it, and they're like kind of me too, and they want to do the same. They've done the same or they want to do it. We have
Yeah.
big circles, and little happiness. One thing I've changed through all of this, I've learned I made my circle smaller,
Yeah.
and in turn, my happiness has gotten bigger.
Wow.
And my circle now is it's pretty much. I mean, I let a lot of people in because as you know, I share my journey, but I share my personal cell phone number with people,
Mhm.
and in order to try and be that good human being and help people.
Yeah.
But just in my normal everyday life, by making my circle smaller, my
Mhm.
happiness has increased tenfold.
Yeah.
And all I need to make myself happy is myself.
Yeah.
I had to learn to love myself before I could love anybody else.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the reasons, actually, I know it is, why my first marriage failed.
Mhm.
That I'll never say disparaging anything bad about my ex-wife. She tried to get me the help. She is an angel, and I damaged it beyond repair. And that's another thing as first responders we don't realize. I know it's gaining some traction now, but how all of this are just our jobs in general affects our family dynamic.
Mhm.
And I see you in your face and shaking your head. It truly does. And I'm actually in a just under 2 weeks now, April 25th. I'm getting remarried. I know
Oh
that's
no,
kind
I'm
of
so happy for you.
yeah, thank you. I know that's kind of soon. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't want to. I didn't want to get into another relationship after my divorce
Mhm.
was final.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was just focusing on and concentrating on myself and
Mhm.
improving myself, being the best me that can be.
Yeah.
And I came across another amazing young lady,
Mhm.
and just want to be the best me that I can be in order to be the best husband in a couple weeks
Yeah.
that I can be.
Yeah.
And life is good. Life is really really good right now.
Yeah.
And I like I said, that got us to, was it April 17th? 2 weeks after that, I went to Save a Warrior, and that's where I learned even more about myself. The very first thing, it was me and 8 other first responders from across the country were there. And the first thing that they asked us was, "Are any of us skeptical about it?" And I was like, "Yeah." I raised my hand. I was like,
I was
"Of
gonna
course."
say, if everyone didn't raise their hand, I'd be surprised.
Yeah. So they asked me. They're like, "Hey, that's fair. Why are you skeptical? Tell us." I was like, "Man," I go, I've been in therapy for several years now, and I just had a suicide attempt. And you think you're going to be able to help me in 72 hours, whereas several years of therapy couldn't."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Okay, that's fair. We'll give that to you.
Yeah.
All we ask is that in return, that I be open, honest, and I lean in to everything that they're going to teach us, and
Yep.
they're gonna pull out of us." And I was like, "You got it," because I want it to get better. I want it to grab at anything out there that that's proven scientifically with case studies and all that to help people. And Save a Warrior is actually documented and has things where it's proven to help with all this. So I did that. And the very next thing they did when we're on the clock for 72 hours was they told us about ACEs,
Yep.
adverse childhood experiences.
I score. Yep.
Yeah, I never knew what that was. And they explained it to us in 10 questions that happened before your 18th birthday. And you either answer it yes or no, and you do not justify
Nope.
any of it. You don't make excuses. Either it happened to you or it
It
didn't.
didn't. Yeah.
And my initial score at the very beginning of the 72 hours when we did this was a 5. Well, at the end of the 72 hours, they redid it, because we use the yet again another analogy we talk about with therapy and all. You need to be able to peel back the layers of the onion.
Yeah.
Well, during these 72 hours, there was no onion left, because we didn't stop. We kept peeling. We didn't just pull the outer layers back. We pulled it back to there was
Yeah.
nothing. And they do another ACEs score at the end. And because we unleashed a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff that we had suppressed for all of
Oh,
these years, and my
absolutely.
score jumped up from a 5 to an 8.
Wow.
And for those out there that don't know what the ACE score is, I know I kind of told you it was the 10 questions and all, but for each yes, you get a point. So the max points you can get is 10. And the closer to 10 you are, the more likely it is that you have CPTSD. The average prison population I've seen in studies, and was told from some reliable people, is about a 6 or about 6.5.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a whole lot of studies on first responders. There's been a
I was
lot of
just
informal
about to
stuff.
say, yeah.
First responder, from some of the
Very
smaller
common.
studies, is about a 6.5
Very
also.
common.
And the reasoning and thought process is because the first 18 years of our lives, we could have been, not everybody, but with the higher ACEs score, you could have been beaten. You had some kind of
Yeah.
a rough. Like I said, I had a
Or you
good
felt
childhood. I
or you
did have
felt
this.
helpless, or yeah.
Yeah, so we wanted to be the rescuer. We wanted to get out, so we joined the military, so we could get away from home and go see the world, as the recruiters tell you. We become first responders because we want to be the rescuer, because there was nobody there to rescue us.
Yep.
And it taught me a lot about myself, and it helped me become more complete.
Yep.
Like I said earlier, my father had already passed, but I learned a lot about generational trauma in that time. And
Yeah.
even though he's gone, I was able to still become complete with my father.
Yeah.
Um, I it's not about telling them that you forgive them. It's about asking my father or asking our loved ones to forgive us for making them wrong. I made my dad wrong by getting angry at him, where when he was too tough on me and would give me the whole suck it up buttercup and everything else. I'm not going to get into a lot of the stuff with my childhood, but it's the whole we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And it's generational. So he was doing what he thought he had to do to survive because it was done to him when he was a kid and done to my grandfather when he was a kid, and so on and so on.
Absolutely.
But when I finally came back from Save a Warrior, one of the first things I did after recognizing about generational trauma was I talked to my wife. We were still married at the time, but I talked to my son, and I was like, "Hey, a lot of those same traits that my dad had with me, I was doing it with my son." I was like, "Son, I'm sorry. I learned so much about myself." I was like, "This generational trauma is stopping now," and we have an amazing relationship. We always had a good relationship, him and I, but I was just as tough on him as my dad was on me.
Yeah.
And it stopped.
Wow.
And like I said, I'm living my life. It wasn't just those 72 hours because we call it doing the work.
Yeah.
And you got to do the work every day. I am in therapy still. And I told my therapist that I see now that I go every other week, and I will not stop that. If obviously vacation or something comes up, and I got to push it out once, but I think it's important, even when times if I think that I have nothing at all to talk about or to process or anything. I told her I would still show up, and we'll talk about the weather or whatever. So when I show up during those times, within 5 minutes, something comes up, and I'm like, "Oh, well, we did have this happen on a call or whatever," or my relationship, Kristen and we had an argument and it kind of bothered me. Something will always come up.
Yeah.
And I'm just doing my best now. And I know it is kind of reactive to the things that happened to me in the past, but I'm trying to be proactive now. I recommend to a lot of people, don't wait for your bucket to overflow. Go out, because like I said, it took me quite a while to find a competent therapist.
Yeah.
Start finding one now. And when you find one, get in there.
Yeah.
Just go once a month. Go and just start talking about things. Like I said, you might not think you have anything to process that's bothering you, but once you get in there and you start talking, something will come up.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Work through it. Incorporate your family into it. Find if you're married, find a marriage counselor. And why wait for your marriage to start crumbling before you do that? Because a lot of times, like mine, it was too far gone. So let's be proactive for once in our careers. Because like I said, everything else is reactive.
Yeah.
Take care of ourselves, but let's take care of our families too. And it's the whole remember what I said. If you take me up on this and you go to therapy and you're seeking out that therapist for the first time, I'm getting ready to get married in 2 weeks. I told you I need a pair of shoes for my suit. If I go to the shoe store with a mindset that I want a certain pair of shoes and I try those shoes on and they're not comfortable or they don't fit, I think my wife, or my soon-to-be wife, would be pretty upset if I showed up. I live here on the beach, but if I showed up barefoot, we're not going to do that. If we're looking for shoes and something doesn't fit right, we're not just going to say to heck with it and walk around barefoot the rest of our life. No, we're going to find a pair of shoes that's right for us and that's comfortable. Same thing with the therapist. Find a therapist, go. If it's not right, if you're just not comfortable or whatever, because we've all heard horror stories where the therapist is crying because they're living vicariously through our traumas.
Yeah.
Find the one that works for you, because if you can't be open and honest in a safe place, you're not getting the help you need, because you need to be able to get all of this crap out.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I love that analogy. I'm not going to lie. I'm probably going to steal it.
no, absolutely. Hey, name in my game. Take it. Take it at all.
No,
Ego is not my amigo. So I got no ego. You guys take whatever. If
no.
it helps you or helps somebody,
But
take it.
it's I had someone call to inquire about coaching services the other day, and I don't know whether it's like an Australian thing or maybe just a me thing. I'm very upfront like that, and so I'm like, do you know what coaching is? Da 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 da. And I gave him a bit of like an explanation, and like, do you have any other questions? He's like, no, I think I've got it, and I'm like, cool. And I said, look, I'm like, there is zero pressure from me. I'm like, I am not the kind of person who I'm going to shove myself down your throat trying to force you to work with me. Like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I go about it. This is how passionately I am for it. I might not be your cup of tea, and that's okay. I'm like, I am confident enough to know and comfortable enough to know that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. And that's okay. If I'm not, I don't give a shit if you don't work with me. But if you're still out there seeking something else, whether it's another coach, whether you need more help than I can provide you, let me dig into my resource network and let me help to try to find you what it is that you're looking for. Because it's not actually like, I find such complete and utter joy in being the person to help people. But it's not about me and it's not about my ego. All it is about you getting that help that you need. And that exactly. And that's why I love that analogy so much. Like you have to fit each other like a freaking shoe. And if it doesn't fit, like if you're trying to shove, your foot into a size 8 when you're a size 12, it's not going to work, mate. So
Yeah,
I'll preface it by saying this. I'm going to steal it, but I will always credit you. How about that, Chris?
that's fine. Regardless, it's all. I know you're using it in the context to help somebody else. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that's what this is all about. I know we're on the same page, and many of us out there.
Yeah.
But there are other people out there. They get into this for the right reason to help others and everything. But then that ego gets the better of them. And
Yeah.
but I know truly from our experience with each other that your heart is in the right place. And yeah, so
That
um,
means a lot.
yeah, we as first responders, we can we our superhero sense is we can sniff out BS.
Oh, 1,000,000%.
Yeah, so somebody out there is coming to your department or organization or talking, or you hear them on a podcast or their social media, whatever it is. Um, just be wary,
Yeah.
be cognizant, and
Yeah.
like I said, I know so many people have that approach me and everything, and they're like, "No, you're genuine, and we get it." And I think that's who we got to be. We can't lose
Yeah.
sight of who we are. We can't, as big as this is, we can't let it get bigger than us.
Yeah.
And then our our friend, actually, a lot of our friends, we hear in this community the smashing the stigma,
Yeah.
and I wish that were true. We're not smashing anything yet. We're chipping away. We're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
But we do have a long ways to go before we're smashing anything.
Yeah.
But as long as we're moving forward, and we
Yeah.
just got to remind ourselves, because I'm sure with a lot of us, it gets frustrating. We want to do so much more. And I just got to tell myself at times that even baby steps are still moving forward.
Yeah.
So it might not be the pace that we want, but we're still going forward. And
And yeah. Well, and I think it just is like the same with anything, like progress in whether it's a goal we're trying to attain, whether it's like anything, it's everyone thinks the trajectory is going to be linear, and it's just freaking not. Like, it's how often have we tried to do things in our own lives where you take, like 3 steps forward and get shoved 5 back? Like, it's that gradual thing. And I'm sure I don't want to speak on your behalf by any means, but I'm sure every time, you might wake up and crack open social media and you see another suicide or another loss in the first responder community. And we are speaking in, what are we in, April? And, even just like a few weeks ago, there were like the loss of 4, current and former deputies in like one department in Texas. Like
Yeah.
it's that stuff when you are in the space of just trying to make a little bit of difference with your story, or with coaching, with putting out a podcast, with like all of the things, just trying to make people feel that they're not alone. And then we're still obviously coming across people who are, like, it hurts your heart.
Yeah.
Like, it truly does. And so we can't control anyone else's actions, but we can be heartfelt and authentic in what we put out, knowing that best case scenario is it reaches the right person, and it does help someone who might be struggling.
Yeah.
That's all we can do.
Yeah, it's definitely, like you said, it's heartbreaking when you wake up in the morning and you hear that, or you get a phone call during the night from a friend and tells you that somebody had taken their life.
Yeah.
But it, it angers me too, not at those people, but a lot of it angers me with the organizations.
Yeah.
Because we should all be doing so much more for our members within the departments.
Mm-hmm.
We throw a lot of money, rightfully so, to
Mm-hmm.
good places for training.
Yeah.
We take care of our gear, our apparatus, our equipment, and everything. We do checkoffs in the morning. We buy, a lot of the departments buy the best of the best and outfit
Yeah.
our stations and our crews with it. But we need to take some of that money and divert it to our mental health and wellness.
Mm-hmm.
There is the trend that's going around, starting to gain momentum with embedded clinicians.
Yeah.
And I think, to me, that's a very good start,
Mm-hmm.
is having the policy has to be written properly,
Yeah.
where they're out of, who they report to, and that's a whole nother conversation right there.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
say.
just getting them within your agency and doing ride-alongs, or breaking bread at the kitchen table at the firehouse. Members might not open up or say anything in that moment, but it's just about forming that bond and
I was gonna
planting
say
that
building that
seed.
rapport. Yeah.
Yeah, because you figure down the road when somebody might be struggling or having an issue, it'll come back to them, and they'll be like, "Hey, I remember when this clinician was over at our kitchen table having dinner with us. She seemed really cool. Let me pick up the phone and call her." And
Exactly.
so it's just planting a lot of seeds,
Yeah.
different different seeds. Not all of them are going to grow,
Yeah.
but some of them are, and they're going to grow
Yeah.
up to be strong oak trees, or whatever, just
Yeah.
pillars for success.
Yeah. So you're just gonna keep watering them.
Yeah, exactly. And so I know
Yeah.
we're loaded with analogies today.
We have been, haven't we?
But yeah,
um,
so I think those are really good ideas to
yeah.
embed that. And then they're actually talking about, I know off camera today, we talked about schedules for firefighters.
Mm.
And that's another thing too, just because sleep deprivation plays such a role in our mental health.
Ugh,
And
huge.
because we're our own worst enemy with this. When I talked about alcohol is bad for your sleep.
Oh, a
But then
million
you
percent.
factor in caffeine. Just about every firehouse, police precinct, sheriff's office, dispatch center is going to have a pot of coffee going, no matter time of day.
24/7. Yeah.
And then energy drinks. I think the energy drink market is like $88 billion a year. Coffee is like $105 billion a year. We're hurting ourselves. You need at least 6 hours of sleep to have better, improved mental health and your overall health to your body.
Mm-hmm.
The number, if you have less than 6 hours of sleep, is you're at a 200% chance increase of having a fatal heart attack.
Oh.
I was going to say women, but men can actually get it also. Your
Mm.
risk of breast cancer is 40% higher with less than 6 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
Um, Prostate and colorectal cancer is 50% higher.
Gosh.
So,
And not to mention all of the PFAS, PFAS,
Oh
whatever
yeah, oh yeah,
like
the
that
cancer.
firefighters are exposed to, and all that kind of stuff. Like it's literally, and I'm going to use a very crass analogy, so forgive me, but it's like there's a monkey just like throwing shit at you guys, like that you're just trying to dodge with like sleep deprivation and the like hazardous chemical exposure and just the innate risks of the job that you do. Like
Yeah,
it's it's when you're on the other side of it as the spouse, it's always kind of like ticking away, and you're like, I can't control most of that. Like I have literally zero control over it. So it's like, okay, so what can I have control over in terms of supporting that person? And that's, one of the things even that I love the most is like a lot of the, fire departments or fire academies are like, you have to sign up and do, I think, some bullshit class or something like that. But then you go get a free scan, free CT scan, free MRI, free all of the things, because they're actually finally trying to be that somewhat proactive and preventative, at least about that side of it. So I feel like that's progress, at least.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, we're taking steps. We're heading in the right direction, but we're not smashing anything yet.
No. Hopefully one day.
Yeah, definitely.
um, can I ask, and I know you mentioned obviously, and it hurt my heart to hear about some of the response or feedback that you got or that you received after your suicide attempt, because I think that's really just so unfortunate and would have been incredibly hurtful. But what was, I guess, maybe the overall impact on your fire department? Because obviously you're still an active duty captain now, and we're talking like 3 years ago. I guess, yeah, like what was it like coming back? Are you aware of any kind of impact it had on the troops or the fire department at large? Have things been put into place since then? Is there anything you can talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this goes back to also the we don't know.
Yeah.
And most departments, what I'm finding out now, nobody has a plan in place,
Yeah.
no policies, no SOPs in place for a suicide survivor.
Yeah.
And my department was one of those. In the fire service, we have, I believe it's NFPA 1582, and that mentions that you can have keep a member out for a year if they have a suicide attempt. And
Cool.
that's what my organization chose. They took me offline for a year and put me behind a desk.
Okay.
And I don't fault them for that or anything. I don't think we should have, there should be a policy.
Mm-hmm.
And I've actually since then have worked with some agencies across the country. I do consulting
Mm-hmm.
with that to help agencies get some kind of plan in place.
Yep.
Mike Tyson once said that everybody thinks they have the answer to the test until they get punched in the face. So don't wait until you're punched in the face. Let's get you some
Yeah.
answers.
Yeah.
We can do basic policies, but they shouldn't be cookie cutter. They're not one size fits all, just like the
They can't
clinicians.
be. Yeah.
So my recovery might be different than somebody else's.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain things that we can put in place of how to treat these members and
Yeah.
how to make it more beneficial for them.
Yeah.
Because as much as we don't like to admit it, and I've come to terms now where I'm not letting it be my identity. But as a first responder, it is to a strong extent our identity.
Yeah.
And when I was taken off the rig and put behind a desk, that bothered my mental health a lot. And I was already struggling coming off of the suicide attempt.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm sitting behind a desk for a year.
Yeah.
So it was tough, but looking back at in hindsight, it was the right thing to do. There could have been other tweaks, adjustments that we could have made to make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And a recommendation is, and like I said, everybody is case dependent,
Mm-hmm.
but you need to put together a team, and you have a healthcare team. You have somebody from within the organization. within the organization, you have the first responder that went through the suicide attempt, but then you have their family, and you have that all going around the first responder, and everybody's kind of interacting
Yeah.
and giving feedback and input.
Yeah.
And obviously, with that, it all has to be agreed upon. You can't violate HIPAA or anything like that. But I think that would be good. And you come up with set guidelines and goals.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep having these goals, and every time the first responder is about to score, you move the goal line even further away.
Yeah.
So we need to come up with these set ones and boundaries and everything. One of the things on top of the comments that I had heard, because that was people outside of the department and some within the agency too.
Yeah.
But like I said, overall, it was a good experience, especially looking back on in hindsight. But I did feel at times from some people shunned.
Yeah.
And it was, people told me after the fact they didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
you
that
don't have to say,
awkward. Yeah.
don't say anything. Just say, hey man, can I come over? You want to watch a baseball game today, or football's on TV tonight? You want to come over, and come over there and watch Monday Night Football? When the timing is right, trust me, you can tell I like to talk. We'll talk. I say whatever they want to know. I tell them, don't be afraid to ask me questions. And I'm an open book. I'm not going to hide anything. And I just think you don't shun. We educate that, hey, this is going to happen within your agency. It's going to be okay. We've actually, prior to my attempt, I believe I'm the only, as far as I know, the only suicide survivor in my department, but we've had 3 suicide completions within my agency. And like I said, I just think it's education that's the key to anything, and let people know that, hey, this is a serious issue. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily a matter of if it's going to happen within your agency. It's a matter of when.
Yeah.
I wish that wasn't the case at all.
Yeah, me too.
But let's put things in place. Like I said, I've gone all across the country. I just got back from Kansas City last weekend, and speaking at a conference there. I have yet to find a organization anywhere. If any of your listeners know of an organization that has policies in place for suicide survivors, call me. Let me know. I would love to see it. I would come up with some of the stuff that I'm using for my consulting, and we can put them together. I would love to help.
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to feel like I felt during that time period. Like I said, it wasn't bad. I'm not talking bad about my organization, but I just want organizations to learn from this and to grow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I've had a very similar conversation with an organization called Battalion 1 Consultants. And I'll talk a little bit more about it with you offline, but
Okay.
that the boss Paul, he's all over that concept because it's something that's in his head, and he's like, what about this? Like, we cater for this, we cater for this, we cater for this, but not all departments are considering people like you coming back from your situation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that sort of stood out to me when you were talking about that is like when people admit that they don't know what to say. Like, I have sort of dealt with the notion and the concept of suicide since a 7-year-old. That's like when it, impacted my life. And it's like it's one of the only things in society that people, no matter the smashing of the stigma and everything, like you're talking about, everyone, unless you're in this space, everyone still finds it so uncomfortable and awkward, to the point where instead of wanting to come up and say to you, I'm so sorry you found yourself in that situation, and I'm so glad that you are here, they just avoid, they walk away, they say nothing. And I find it sad, but interesting that it's still one of those things that still permeates, and it's not just the first responder community, it's community in general. When people hear about, like you saying, like a cancer death or an accident or anything, but when there is that suicide component attached, it just, there's a reason that there's this whole taboo thing around it, because I guess I can't look at it perhaps objectively because it has always been in my zeitgeist, but it's it really resonated when you talked about that, because I think it's, even like as a child of a parent who completed suicide, grown adults, I was left in the position of having to kind of comfort grown adults to make them not feel uncomfortable about the fact that they would ask me how my dad died, and I would answer truthfully because that's what you do when you're a kid, and they would not know how to react or how to
Yeah.
respond.
And
So it's one of those things.
not everything deserves a response. And just to pull another quote out from Maya Angelou, she said, people won't always remember what you said, but they will remember how you make them feel. Yes. Just like those people that said the horrible things to me. I do remember those, but more importantly, I remember how they made me feel. And I don't want anybody ever to feel that way again. I know it's going to happen, but if I can do my part to prevent people from saying things like that to make somebody feel that bad again by just educating, then I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
But I also remember I had people come up to me, and these are still my safe people to this day. They didn't say a word. They just gave me a hug, and just, I'm getting choked up thinking about it now. Just the memory of it.
Yeah.
And that was the most important thing.
Yeah.
Is just that
just
hug
being there,
and that connection. Yeah. And knowing that they truly do care about me. They truly do love me. They have my best interest in mind, and they just wanted me to get better. And they want me to continue to get better to this day, and to walk the straight and narrow. They know we're going to have our ebbs and flows. I know that now. It's just a matter of recognizing and not letting them take me down, take me under. That I'm going to get back up, and I'm going to keep doing everything that's proactive. And even when there are times where I have to be reactive, I have the tools, as I'm sure your loved one can attest to in the fire service. If we, I just had a brand new firefighter start for me this past Friday.
Oh, wow.
And imagine his very first day. And we have it, we call it you're probably familiar, the irons. It's a flathead axe and a halligan. We use it for forcible entry. So if I would have just given this brand new firefighter the set of irons and said, hey, go open that door, I'm sure eventually he would have been able to get through there, but it wouldn't have been pretty. It wouldn't have been good. So with mental health, when we give people these tools, it's not a matter of just giving them the tools. We got to give them the know how to use the tools and the know when to use the tools.
Yeah.
And that's where I am light years ahead of where I was in 2022. In 3 short years, now I know when to use the tools, where to use the tools, how to use the tools. And it's just such a powerful feeling, and not power over anybody else other than myself and my mind and my well-being.
Yeah.
And I love sharing that with people, and sharing the tools with them, and sharing how to use those tools and how to incorporate those into their life, their journey, their recovery.
And that actually brings me to exactly the next part that I wanted to cover with you. Talk me through, or tell me about how you got to a place where you were like, I need to share this. I need to go around the country. Like you just talked about, you were just in Kansas. Like, talk to me how that came about, because clearly you're very passionate about it. And like you said, you give your personal phone number out for anyone who's struggling to reach out to you. Talk to me about how you went from realistically one of the darkest moments and periods of your life to being able to stand up in front of your peers and talk about this in order to spread your message?
Yeah. So ironically, I 2017, after talking to the fire chief and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and thought that I was doing good, and then getting into therapy, I just decided, I was like, you know what? I was like, I thought that I was all alone until the fire chief talked to me and all that. There's others out there that are probably going through the same thing. So I was doing it, introduced to journaling then.
Yep.
I'd actually penned an article, and it was put in Fire Engineering Magazine, kind of sharing some
Okay.
of my story,
Yep.
and decided to start going around and sharing it.
Mm-hmm.
My very first conference that I've ever presented with was out in the Dallas, Texas area, and I was nervous as hell. I'm not a big public speaker, or at least, well, still not that much, even though that's what I do now.
Yeah.
But went out there and did that, and it just resonated with me, because when
Mm-hmm.
I was done, it was people were coming up to me, and how the fire chief made me feel like I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Now I'm there doing that, and all these other people are coming up, letting me know that they no longer feel like they were alone.
Mm.
And I was doing it. It kind of it picked up, was going very well, but I was doing what I was preaching at the time, but I didn't have all the tools yet, because,
Yep.
like I said, I hadn't been introduced to a lot of stuff. Um, I wasn't doing all of my self care,
Yep.
and like we had talked about earlier, just sharing the story, talking on podcasts or at conferences, it's mentally exhausting. It's
Mm-hmm.
draining. When I come down after doing hour and a half presentation, I'm just literally drained and exhausted. But I still make
Yeah.
the time for everybody that comes up to me to carry on and have these other conversations. But now I have even more tools, and I know when to use the tools.
Mm-hmm.
Important one for me is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a device that I use. I'm actually a rep for them here in Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Alpha Stem, and
Okay.
it's a electrocurrent. You just put
Yep.
little clips on your ears, and it's
Wonderful.
actually FDA cleared
Mm-hmm.
for anxiety and insomnia.
Oh,
And I
wow.
utilize that, and it brings me down
Yeah.
in a
Oh,
good way. It
yeah.
doesn't bring me down to a
Yeah.
depressive state, but it
Yeah.
just brings my hypervigilance and everything down. That incorporated with meditation. But
Wow. So that device basically helps you like transition into your parasympathetic nervous system? Is that like what the currents
somewhat,
do?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's a patented waveform that they do, and
Mm-hmm.
it just going back and forth through the brain. You could do it for 20, 40, or 60 minutes,
Okay.
and it just
Interesting.
yeah, it works wonders for me. I
Yeah.
started it um, back in 2020. Was
Mm-hmm.
introduced to it at a conference. They were there, had a table set up, and I just came down from speaking, and they saw how I was drained, and
Yeah.
they're like, "Here, try this," and they explained it to me and got me all set up, and I was like, "Wow." I was sold then. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of other companies come up to me with wanting me to help out at their inpatient and outpatient facilities, and just kind of put my name to it, and
Mm-hmm.
um, bring awareness to it. But I'm not going to be a snake oil salesman. If it's something I
Yeah.
don't believe in, I'm
Yeah.
not going to do that, because, like we said earlier, first
Yeah.
responders can sniff out BS.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly, because like I said, I use Alpha Stem, so
Mm-hmm.
that's why I'm not afraid to actually mention a name of something right now to
Mm-hmm.
your members. Look into it, guys. Everybody out there listening,
Mm.
Alpha Stem.
Alpha
That helps
stem.
me out
Okay.
tremendously with being a tool in my toolbox for when I do
Yep.
my presentations.
Yep.
But so I was doing the journaling pretty much in EMDR, where my main two things, or my only two things, pretty much prior to my suicide attempt.
Mm-hmm.
After that, Save a Warrior taught me about meditation. I actually got my own Alpha Stem device, and using that on a regular basis now. My faith. So I wasn't practicing what I preached prior to. Post suicide, I practice what I preach. I have more tools. I know when to use the tools, know how. It's about finding the safe people, finding safe spots
Yep.
too that bring joy and happiness. Like I said, I live on the beach here, so it's nothing for me to get up and go to the beach in the very early morning and watch the sun rise, do meditation. I've never been a big reader, but I have actually gotten into doing reading, studying up. A lot of people in our circle have written some great books.
Yep.
You didn't mention the book, but you used a term. It's the title of one of my good friend's book. It's called Overcoming Tuesday. When you said for us, it's just another Tuesday.
Yeah.
That's where he came up with the title of that book, and it just shares his
Ah.
experience and his journey.
Yeah.
So you're welcome for your plug, Jim Bernica. Overcoming Tuesday, a great book from a great friend of mine,
Oh, amazing.
sharing his journey as a firefighter in
Yeah.
Ohio.
Oh, wow.
So I'm actually working on that still with journaling and everything now. I'm
Yeah.
trying to get a lot of my notes I've done over the years and working on a book to get out there. Anything I can
I
do.
was wondering about that.
Yeah, anything I can do just to spread the word and just
Yeah.
let people know, whether it's speaking at conferences, speaking to individual departments, working on a book, putting my personal cell phone number out there,
Yeah.
my social media posts, Save a Warrior, that organization, the thing that Jake Clark, the founder of that, he just said if we could just save one, and that's I kind of got that same philosophy. If I can just make a difference in one person, and I know I've already done well over that,
Yeah.
but then we're doing something.
Yeah.
And I I just strive to be that good human being
Yeah.
and do that. So I know I kind of
Oh.
bounced around all over from your question, but
No, no. I mean, I think anyone watching or listening could see, how and hear wholeheartedly, like you really believe in what you're doing. And if, I mean, from my one little person perspective, the fact that you actually, I mean, you're incredibly open and honest and raw, and you share the good and the bad, which not a lot of people will do. Like, you talk about the fact that you drank and that you were reckless with money and that, infidelity was an issue. And a lot of people would gloss over stuff like that. And you don't. And that takes balls. It takes balls to be unapologetically honest when you are out there and putting yourself out there, because we know that we're not in control of what comes back to us. But equally being able to admit that, hey, I was out there and I was, doing the talk, but I wasn't walking the walk. And then
yeah,
this is where it led. And I can actually tell you that and share my experience, because that is what it can get to. Like, I think that equally would resonate with a lot of people, because a lot of people might be like, oh no, I'm okay. Like, I'm doing this and I'm doing that and whatever else. And then they can be like, shit, I'm actually really not. I'm not. I'm lying to myself. I might be lying to my loved ones, and I'm actually not okay. And hearing your story could really be impactful in that way.
yeah, and that's another great point you just kind of brought up there too about people being okay. We are professionals
Yeah.
at wearing masks,
Yeah.
and we hide it, we conceal it. Nobody knew on March
Yeah.
15th, on the morning of March 16th, when I walked out of there, because I had
Mm.
that mask on. Like I still had that thousand yard stare, but
Yeah.
um, nobody knew.
Yeah.
And or did they just refuse to acknowledge? I don't know. But regardless, when we see somebody in out in public, or the hallway of the firehouse or headquarters or wherever it may be, and we're like, hey, how you doing today? And we always get that standard answer. Like I would always give my wife, I'm
Mm.
okay, or I'm fine.
Yeah.
Biggest lie in the world, I am fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I started incorporating, and I encourage others to do, is when you ask somebody that and that's the answer you get, take a second. I usually take about 10 seconds. Kind of take a deep breath. And I look at them. I say, hey, Erin, how are you really doing? And oh my God,
Yeah.
it 99.9% of the time, I get a different answer from them
Ugh.
because it shows that
Yes.
I'm not just doing just a standard, hey, how you doing today or whatever.
Yeah.
By taking that 10 seconds and looking them in the eye and asking them how they're really doing, they're saying that I am truly vested in how they're doing, their
Yep.
well-being and who they are. I ask them about their family. When we get back from calls on the fire engine, if my guys get out of the jump seat and my driver's right there before I jump off the truck, when those guys get off, I'll look over to my driver and like, hey, how you doing? If it was a tough call, it's like, hey, how do you feel after that call? You okay with everything or whatever? How's your wife? How's your kids? Just little things. Just be a good human being. That's the to me. It's so simple, but not everybody it is. But when I start sharing little things like that, and people start incorporating that, they'll reach back out to me. They're like, man, that's such an easy thing. I can't believe I wasn't doing that sooner. And I'm seeing like all sorts of positive results from doing that. So
absolutely. And I think as well, even if they choose not to accept that in the moment, I think knowing that you actually are a person who is invested and cares, and I think it's a quote from our friend Bessel's book, that actually feeling truly listened to and heard, it changes our physiology.
Yeah.
And that's even, part of the aspect of, like, when I coach people, it's like having someone give you their complete undivided attention, and there's nothing external, and all it is like, talk to me about yourself, about what's going on in your world, and I am here for you, and that you're the only thing that is important in my world right now. That it's very, very impactful, so much so.
Well, somewhere along the way, I guess worldwide, as human beings, we have taught ourselves or conditioned ourselves, however you want to look at it. We listen for the wrong reasons.
We listen to respond.
We listen to respond. Instead, we should go back and recondition our minds. We need to be listening to understand. And but we're always just listening so we can interact, and we interrupt people and this and that. Just hey, with all due respect, shut up. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so use a little less of this and more of this, and listen to hear the inflection in that person's tone, because you can pick up a lot of context clues with that. By hearing, if their voice normally sounds this way, but you're talking to them today and you can hear they're kind of choked up or whatever it may be. Listen to understand where that person is, who they are, where they're coming from.
Yeah. I mean, and when you get that perceptive, like, and I'm unfortunately sometimes for my friends, I can pick up a tone in a text message.
Yes.
And I go and I'll, write back, and I'm like, what's the matter? What's up? And they're like, how did you know? And I'm like, that's why they pay me the big bucks. I want to acknowledge the fact that Chris got off 24-hour shift, and we have taken up a lot of his time today. So I have a whole list of questions and everything that I wanted to ask, and I think that you've answered most of them fairly organically, which tends to happen. But I really just want to say thank you. Like, this has been a really, truly beautiful conversation that has touched my heart in a lot of ways, and I just want to say thank you to not only taking the time today, but for the work that you are doing in this space, because I am experiencing it over a screen, and yet I can imagine how impactful and powerful and just deep it's felt when you get up and you're in a room with people sharing your story. So thank you for what it is that you do.
Thank you, and thank you for what you do. Being the spouse of a first responder, that's a tough job. But no,
Especially a firefighter.
yeah, but no, that definitely not making light of that. Thank you for that, but also thank you for what you do with your coaching and everything. But for the I will hold space for your darkness podcast, for this podcast, for giving others a platform to come on here and to share their stories and their expertise or whatever it may be with you, in hopes that we can normalize these conversations, because that's what we got to do. So
Exactly.
I can't thank you enough. And if you do have more questions, and if this episode does very well, let's do a part two.
Yeah.
Um,
I would love
I got so much more that I can say and I can
that.
share, and I'm sure
I
you'll.
know. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I will pop your details in the show notes, but I know that you typically and so beautifully like share your personal number with people if they do find themselves struggling and feel the need to reach out, because I know you're on Facebook and LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. But I want to give you an opportunity to do that right now if you would like to.
Yeah, thank you. So I decided several years ago, I was toying around with the idea of putting my personal phone number out there, and my family and friends told me I was nuts for doing that. As first responders, we're pranksters and everything like that, and I would end up getting all sorts of prank phone calls. And it was the whole, I don't care if I get pranked or not, I just want it to help at least one person. And I've helped a lot more than one person by now from putting my number out there. And I have, knock on wood, not yet got a prank phone call in 5 years of doing this now.
Wow.
So I do give the disclaimer that I am not a coach, I'm not a clinician, not a therapist, sure as hell, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a fellow first responder that's been doing this for over 30 years now. I've got lived experiences, and I'll listen to you. I'll listen to understand.
Yep.
I'm not going to listen just to respond.
Mm.
You don't have to call me just because you're struggling. You can call me if you got questions about your peer support team or whatever it is that you're running in your agency. Any questions or thoughts, comments, concerns that I can be of assistance with. If you want me to come out to your city, let me know.
Mm.
But my personal number is 757-536-3373. And I will always listen to you guys. So hit me up, call me, shoot me text. That's my personal phone number. I will answer it unless I'm at church, on a call, late at night and I'm asleep, whatever it may be. So
Getting
I struggle.
married.
Yeah, if I'm in the middle of it. But call me. If you don't get me, leave a message, shoot me a text, whatever, and I promise you I will get back with you. So thank you for actually giving me that platform to put that out there as well, Erin.
Of course. Very, very happy to. All right, Chris, we normally finish these episodes by asking our guests two questions. And it comes off the back of the name of the podcast, I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness, which comes from a Brene Brown quote, but it basically, just relates to the fact that we see a lot of darkness in our first responder roles. And so the first question I like to ask people is, what do you do? And you've kind of broadly, spoken about it a fair amount, but what do you do to hold space for your darkness?
So meditation has become so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. When I was introduced to meditation at Save a Warrior,
Yeah.
the first thing that came to my mind, and I apologize to your listeners and viewers out there who may be from that area or get offended by this, but I was like, what kind of California tree hugger granola crap is this? And they laughed at it, and they're like, hey, we get it, we understand, we thought the same thing also. They said give it it could take up to 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
if you daily try it, keep doing your meditation. It's a 20-minute meditation they were teaching us.
Yep.
And it took me 12 days before I was able to fall into a meditative state and
Yeah.
get
It's
my 20-minute
hard.
meditation in.
It's effort. Yep.
And I do that to this day. I get at least one 20-minute meditation in every day. And the second thing, which actually two more things I incorporated in with that is my faith. I do prayer and meditation, but I also do an inventory of myself, where I'm feeling. I do it from head to toe. Just recognize if I got a little headache, and I just try and let it go. And then I just work my way all the way down my body, just kind of scanning it and acknowledging how I feel.
Yeah.
And then
Accepting without judgment.
yeah. And I process in the evening at the firehouse, and I process the calls that I've been on that day, how they made me feel, interactions with family, if we have a cardiac arrest or whatever it may be, kind of like, I guess, our way of doing what we call Monday morning quarterback. But I don't critique myself in a negative way. I just recognize how I felt during those calls.
Yeah.
Know that I wasn't powerless. And I then go into my meditation, and I do that in my off shift too. On my days home today, I'll just, when I lay my head down tonight, I'll think about things that happened to me throughout the day. If my fiance and I had a disagreement or whatever, I'll just process that, and we talk about it, and I do my meditation, and life is good.
It sounds it for you, and I'm so happy for that. And the second question is, what can someone do in order to like support you the best in being able to hold space for that darkness?
Just be understanding, listen to understand, be non-judgmental, and be safe. That's probably one of the biggest things right there, is be a safe person. Because if you see that I'm struggling, and you come up to me and you want to try and help me, and I open up to you and I share what I'm feeling and what I'm going through, and the next thing I know, it's all around town or all around the department. Because in the fire service, we have started out with telegraph, went to telephone, now it's telefirefighter.
Yeah.
Start shift at 7 o'clock. If I want a rumor spread or something like that, I just tell somebody, and by 8 o'clock, it's all around a 500-member department.
Oh, yeah.
So you need trust and confidentiality. If you're coming to me and want to hold space for me, be there for me, but be safe.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I could not wholeheartedly agree more. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Chris. Really, really appreciate it. And I look forward to getting this conversation out so everyone can hear it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
All right. This has been another episode of I Will Hold Space for Your Darkness. I've been your host, Erin Jane. And as always, let me listen in a way you've never been heard. Cheers.